Hello to all my fourth grade scientists. Real quick, I would like to do a short review video with you if you would like to watch this before you take your science test today. It's going to be short, probably 5 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, just to talk about everything we've learned so far that will be on your test. The first of those being the scientific method. Now, if you remember, there are 7 steps to the scientific method, and each step has its own process that scientists have to go through. The first step would be question. In order for scientists to create an experiment, they have to somehow answer a question or have some question that they are going to be answering. So in the question part of the scientific method, the scientists are coming up with the question they're going to be answering. After they have their question, scientists need to go and do research to figure out the answer to that question. So after they come up with their question, they do research to see if they might find anything to help them answer that question, find any sort of information. Once they have that information, they're able to create their hypothesis, which is their guess to what the answer of the question is. All right. Once they've done those 3 things, they get to do the fun part, which is the experiment. The experiment is the step-by-step process that scientists go through to test their hypothesis to see if the guess to their question was correct, right? As the scientists are doing their experiment, it is important for them to collect data. That is the process where the scientists take notes as to what happens along the way. After they've done their experiment and they collected their data, they analyze their data. That is the 6th step in the scientific method. When they are analyzing their data, they're going back and looking to see if the data matches their hypothesis, and they're trying to figure out if their hypothesis was correct. Once they have determined if their hypothesis is correct, they go to the conclusion step, which is the last step of the scientific method. In the conclusion, scientists decide, or I guess they've already decided if their hypothesis was correct. The conclusion is where they report their results. They tell other people, whether it's through a video like I'm doing now, or a lab report, or just by word of mouth. They tell people whether or not their hypothesis was correct. That is the conclusion stage. So that's a little quick review of the scientific method. Next, we have our science safety, right? So that's this paper here, right? If you remember, the first thing that we need to make sure we do in a lab is to use caution. It is very important that when you are doing a lab, you use caution. All right, that means no running through the lab, no waving your hands like crazy in a lab. That simply, or just be safe, be smart, think ahead, and don't do anything that would cause harm to yourself or anyone else in a lab. So let's use caution. Then you have to make sure that your hair is pulled back and your sleeves are rolled up. So if you have long hair, you can put it back in a ponytail, a bun, braids. It really doesn't matter as long as it's off of your shoulders and out of the way. If you're wearing long sleeves, you got to roll up your sleeves, or if you're wearing a sweatshirt or something with a t-shirt underneath, just take it off altogether. Either way, as long as your sleeves are out of the way as well. Also, if an accident happens, because that's the next thing. If an accident happens, because even if you're using as much caution as you possibly can, accidents do happen, all right? If an accident happens, all you need to do is you need to step back, and the first thing you need to do is raise your hand and let your teacher know, hey, an accident happens. What do I need to do to clean it up? Or I'm going to step out of the way so the teacher can clean it up. When an accident happens, first thing you do before you do anything else, you tell a teacher. Next up is wearing goggles. This is something that we won't be doing this year in class because we won't be working with anything too dangerous that if it gets in our eyes, it will harm us, all right? But as you grow up and you get into middle school and high school, you will be doing labs where if you get something in your eye, it could really harm your eye. So when needed, it is very important that you wear goggles. Like I said, that won't be something we'll be doing this year, but in the future, that is something that you will need to do. Next up is no eating or drinking in the lab, right? Never, under any circumstance, do you eat or drink in the lab. That's very self-explanatory. And the last one, use science equipment properly. For example, if you have a meter stick like I have right here, you should not use that as a sword. That's not using science tools properly. All right. So that is science safety. The last thing, which I do not have the paper in front of me, I was not able to find. Last thing we need to talk about is science, the science tools. The first of those being the hand lens, all right? The hand lens is a handheld magnifying glass that you use to make objects you are able to see normally, such as insects, larger, all right? After that, we have the magnifying glass, or not the that's what I was just talking about. The microscope. A microscope is used to make items very much larger. Microscopes are used to look at objects that you cannot normally see with your eyes. For example, like if you were to start bleeding, you could take a little droplet of your blood and look at that under a microscope, and you'd be able to see the little blood cells that make up your blood. The next object that we're going to talk about is a pan balance. All right. The pan balance is the one, if you remember, there was a beam across the top and a stand in the middle, and they had two different pans on it. And you could put objects on the pans to compare the weight of the two objects. You could also put individual weights on one side and an object on the other side to see how much the object weighs. All right. So that's pan balance. The next item is the triple beam balance. The triple beam balance is the one with the three beams and the slides that you use to get the very specific mass of an object, right? Next up is a tape measure, or I have my meter stick here as an example as well, those are used to find the length of objects. Very simple. Many of you have used those in the past. We also talked about mirrors. A mirror in science is used to see how light is reflected. They're used for optical illusions and rainbows and just different things like that, just to see how light is reflected off of objects. Some of you might have gone to a fun house before at a carnival or a fair and gone in the mirror room, and you had a bunch of different mirrors that are all shaped in weird ways, and when you stand behind it, it makes you look all sorts of distorted. It makes you look like you have a very big head. That is because the light is reflecting off of it differently. And that is one tool scientists use to study how light is reflected and how maybe that one mirror made your head big. Another one is a collection net. The collection net is a net that we usually use to collect insects. Can be used for other animals as well, but it is used to collect insects safely without harming them. That way you can study them and then release them back when you are done. Another science tool we talked about is the stream table. The stream table, if you remember, is elevated on one end and you drip water at the top to see how water flows. Then you can put it normal without anything in it and just watch the water flow down. Or you could put dirt, clay, sand, anything like that in the pan to see how the water moves through each of those. We also talked about the spring scale. The spring scale is a thing where you hold on one end and you hook an item to the other end and pulls the string to see the force, how much balance, mirror, collection net, tape measure, mirror, spring scale, pan balance. Last one, the one I forgot, is a thermometer. A thermometer, most of you know, or all of you should know, because we studied in class 1, and I'm sure you guys have used these before. A thermometer is used to measure temperature. You can have thermometers for the air to measure the temperature of the air. You can have thermometers for food to measure the temperature of food, make sure it's safe to eat. You can also have thermometers that read the temperature on your forehead or under your tongue to see how hot or how cold you are. There are many different thermometers for many different purposes. So that is our quick review of our science test. Again, if I went too fast and you want another review, you can go back and rewatch this video, or you can go back and watch any of the other videos that I have posted about the scientific method, the science tools, or science safety to review before you take your test. Other than that, that's all I have for you today. Great luck. Good luck on your test. I'm sure every single one of you is going to do amazing. Have a great weekend.